This is the horror story hyper extreme example. You are highly likely. What's up guys, Derek, moreplace.com. Today we are going to be talking about acne management. So this is not a subject I am a thorough expert in, but it's something I have enough experience with to chime in on at least, and have seen a lot of anecdotal reports over the years, have kind of rectified my own situation. I had some pretty bad acne in my teens, as well as going into hormone use in early 20s. I ended up doing haphazardly jumping on Accutane. Now, is it something I regret necessarily? No, it's not, because fortunately for me, I did not have, like crazy side effects that were debilitating. At the time, it's not like the excessive dryness really bothered me. You know, if I could go back in time, I'd probably try some of the other therapies I'm going to outline in this video to you first before I went to the nuclear approach, because there is, you know, a lot of permanent changes that occur with Accutane use that you can't just like turn back time once you use that shit for a full cycle of it. So just keep that in mind. You know, it's something that if you have severe acne, you know, maybe it might be the only thing that's going to work for you, but you should still, just like if you were in bodybuilding, you're not going to jump to the most aggressive thing. You're not going to walk in the gym and try to bench 3 plates. You're going to start with the bar. You know, if you're going to use anabolics, you're not going to jump into 1.5 grams of shit per week off the bat. You know, you're going to start with a reasonable, tolerable dose, the minimum effective dose. You're not going to use the most intense compound. You're not going to use Trenbolone off the bat. You're going to do something that makes more sense, you know? So anyways, I think you get the idea. So this is something I was sent the other day called The Dire Consequences of Doping. And it outlines the acne formation and scarring of this unfortunate 21-year-old bodybuilder. So, you know, obviously kind of a story that otherwise would heavily dissuade many people from ever touching anabolics. I'm not sure, by the way, this video is not trying to convince you that you can, like, you know, take anabolics and not potentially end up like this. So all I'm going to do is outline, you know, how to best go about acne management to try and make sure you don't end up in a position like, again, this is a hyper extreme example too. Like this guy, who knows if, you know, any of the suggestions would have helped, or if he would have had to go, you know, right to Accutane off the bat, or if it was even manageable with Accutane. Like for the majority of people it is, but I mean, this was a severe, like hyper extreme example. So just keep that in mind. Part of this is more so showing the absolute worst case scenario and then relating it back to where you probably would be at. You know, there's like nothing, and then there's this guy, like you're probably gonna end up like somewhere around here. So realistically. So anyways, the dire consequences of doping. Various cases in professional sports have brought the matter of doping, the use of performance-enhancing drugs, to the attention of the public. Here we present a case of doping in a 21-year-old amateur bodybuilder. The man presented to our clinic feeling generally unwell. He was subfebrile, I don't know, but apparently it just means temperature mildly elevated in like the most pretentious way possible, and had massive deep ulcerations, abscesses, and pustules located on his chest and upper back. Persistent questioning revealed a history of continuous abuse of anabolic androgenic steroids. So they outline his cycle, which is not that bad, realistically. Test E, 250 milligrams per week, or twice weekly, sorry, so 500 milligrams a week, plus Dianabol 30 milligrams twice weekly. So I don't know, like metandienone, I'm pretty sure that's methandrostenolone, or metandienone, or metandione. I'm pretty sure it's Dianabol, but you know, they'll say it in different ways. You know, there's like there's several ways to say the chemical name, sometimes in different languages and shit. Or if you're GH15, you just want to add your own, you know, words to it, like Trenbolone and fucking stuff like that. But anyway, so test E, 500 milligrams a week, presumably, and D-bol, I don't know if this means 30 milligrams twice weekly, like he literally only used orals, like pre-workout twice a week, or if it means 30 milligrams a day. Either way, this is like a really estrogenic heavy cycle, obviously, but the dosages aren't obscene, you know? Like I've literally ran this like exact cycle. I think I talked about it in my last video, actually, how I was like an estrogen house when I used this shit. So, which was consistent with the diagnosis of a severe acne conglobata that was anabolic androgenic steroid induced. Additional investigations showed a substantial impairment in sperm concentration and reduced testicular volume. Skin lesions showed rapid improvement after discontinuation of anabolic androgenic steroid abuse with antiseptic and antibiotic therapy. However, the extensive scarring is likely to remain with the young man for the rest of his life. So obviously, like a very, very, horror story essentially from the anabolics world. Figure severe acne conglobata induced by anabolic androgenic steroids. The patient at the time of his ideal body image, the 21-year-old bodybuilder, had a history of anabolic androgenic steroid abuse. I think it's crazy how much his physique deteriorated, It's like the guy was a very good responder, like being 21 and looking like this, like that's insane. And then has this crazy breakout and then somehow like loses all of his muscle in a short period of time and ends up here. Like that's fucking wild. So ends up with severe acne conglobata. Lesions include papules, pustules, abscesses, and deep ulcerations. Patient after 6 weeks of antiseptic antibiotic therapy. So this is the horror story, hyper extreme example. You are highly likely not going to end up here, regardless if you're on gear or not. I'm not suggesting you do anything. I'm just saying that this is like some terrifying shit and does not represent actual like normal anabolic androgenic steroid induced acne. So this severe acne conglobata in particular is something that is characterized by burrowing and interconnecting abscesses and irregular scars, often producing pronounced disfigurement. So this is an uncommon and unusually severe form of acne. So this is not, something that commonly happens to anabolics users. It is something that can be exacerbated and have a higher likelihood of occurring though, however, but it's still not common. The nodules are usually found on the chest, shoulders, back, buttocks, upper arms, and thighs, and the face. So here's another example of acne conglobata in the nodules on the back. So, like I highly doubt this is an anabolic steroid abusing individual. So, it can still happen regardless, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful. If you are highly acne prone as is, adding anabolics into the mix will like there are some individuals who are like, will have exploding cysts on their back doing squats even without being on gear. Like those individuals, like you're going to get fucked when you take gear for sure. Those are the individuals who probably, you might want to think twice, 100%. Obviously you should think twice anyways, but I'm just saying like, it's going to exacerbate whatever you are genetically prone to. So as far as the condition, apparently it generally occurs between age 18 to 30, persists for a long period of time until the patient's around 40 years old. Although it often occurs when there is already an active acne problem, it can also happen to people whose acne has subsided. Although the cause of this type of acne is unknown, it is associated with testosterone and thus appears mainly in males. So, androgen dominant individuals are going to be more likely to have this occur. So as you would expect, if you're increasing your androgen profile to a super physiological amount, your likelihood is exponentially higher. It can be caused by anabolic steroid abuse and sometimes appears in males after stopping testosterone therapy. So, I've always said how the worst breakouts I ever had were coming off rather than being on. So obviously being on, can cause acne in itself, but the worst breakouts are always caused by hormonal fluctuations in my experience. So generally guys who are coming off, they'll, be mid PCT or like almost done PCT or something, and then they'll have a massive breakout. And it's, oftentimes from the hormones clearing out of their system and their hormones wildly fluctuating. So that is something to note as well, because the more wildly unstable your hormones are, the worse it's going to be. And this also reinforces the efficacy of stable blood serum concentrations via, more frequent administration practices for, using your weekly anabolic burden, however you're administering it. Obviously there are half-lives and, you can maintain, like you can get steady state concentrations by the 5th half-life and blah, blah, blah. But some people will still have, worse acne, for example, if they're using even a long ester like less frequently than they could be otherwise. So that's something to note too, because that's a really easy management technique that has absolutely nothing to do with introducing drugs into your system that could otherwise be harmful to your health, just adding more additional exposure to shit in your system that you don't want. And it's literally like just a little bit of extra time, you know, to do an extra, you know, few administrations a week. So anyways, but it keeps everything more stable and it can avoid potentially breakouts. So that's something to note. It can also happen to someone who has a tumor that is releasing large amounts of androgens, or to people in remission from diseases such as leukemia. In certain persons, the condition may be triggered by exposure to aromatic hydrocarbons or ingestion of halogens. So it's kind of, you know, like an extreme example, like I said, and the most common treatment apparently for when it's this severe is Accutane. And they will, you know, use antibiotics and shit like that too. But sometimes even surgery is necessary to remove the large nodules from this disease. So the more applicable scenario would be, how do you manage like normal acne? So obviously this is like, hopefully this doesn't happen to you. But if you were to do, you know, deal with normal acne, what's like the top-down approach of the things that I could think of off the top of my head when I was coming up with this video, the first most obvious things are hitting your micronutrient intake. So for me, obviously, you know, vegetables and antioxidants can be, should be included in your diet. You know, having a broad, balanced diet model, you know, that hits all angles in terms of not just, you know, bioavailable B vitamins and shit like that, but also hitting all kinds of, you know, mopping up free radicals and trying to reduce the burden on your body that may otherwise cause acne breakouts. So some of the main things to ensure you're hitting and may require supplementation if you aren't, which, you know, some people are deficient in. Vitamin E, you know, can help with acne potentially. Zinc, a very potential potent 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, interestingly enough. Fish oil has mild anti-inflammatory properties. Most people are probably going to benefit from fish oil just in general from a health perspective, especially cardiovascular disease management. That is something that, or I shouldn't say management, cardiovascular disease risk, like reduction, very, very significant at, I forget what the dosage is, 4 to 5 grams per day, which is a lot more than most people get, is shown to drop your cardiovascular disease risk by a significant amount. I forget what the percentage is, but it's more significant than basically anything else you could be supplementing with over the counter. And it may help with inflammation related acne. I can't say for certain, but it's something that you probably would benefit from supplementing with anyways if you're not getting enough fish in your diet weekly. Another thing that I like to use is N-Acetyl L-Cysteine. There's not a lot of evidence to support that it's going to, you know, clear up your acne necessarily, but it is something that is a precursor to glutathione, you know, one of the most potent antioxidants in the body, which you would, you know, probably get some benefit from, especially if you are somebody with certain, I don't know, like if you're deficient in general, or if you have acne to begin with, it might indicate a deficiency in some of these, you know, free radical mopping up pathways essentially that may otherwise benefit from supplementation. Because it's kind of like, when you have acne, it's kind of like the visual representation of something internally not going on right. So the answer to that would be addressing, ideally, you know, like what's the root of the issue? So rather than, you know, jumping on Accutane right away, like ideally you would manage the systemic stress via natural means if you can. You know, obviously it's easier said than done when it comes to some people with like aggressive, you know, genetic predispositions. But, you know, this is the kind of shit that makes the most sense to try first, you know, because it's only going to help you from a health perspective anyways. It's not going to be potentially harmful. So N-Acetyl L-Cysteine, I use it every day. I think taurine might be beneficial too. I use that. Especially if you're an anabolics user, the effects you can get from taurine, they're very, it's a very, very potent protective compound, especially like if you're going to be using synthetic anabolic agents too. It's very protective of testicular health, for example. Like there was one study done on, I think this was a rodent model actually, with nandrolone decanoate, where taurine like ameliorated the oxidative stress caused by nandrolone decanoate or something like that. But anyways, just a very, very good supplement to have in your diet, which I have personally. So anyways, that is like frontline stuff that is just going to be probably helpful to you in a health context and may otherwise help manage your acne to some extent. Looking at L-Carnitine too, that is something that interestingly enough may actually have some benefit in terms of enhancing lipid metabolism. And it has been, if you're using Accutane, like let's say you have to go to the nuclear approach, something that may be worth adding in is L-Carnitine too, not only from the lipid metabolism perspective, but apparently Accutane actually depletes your body of L-Carnitine. So this is something that has shown at least promise in studies to attenuate some of the negative side effects of Accutane. So obviously if you are depleting yourself of carnitine, you want to replace that. So carnitine is just a good supplement in general if you are a bodybuilder, in my opinion. Obviously injectable preparation being the ideal way of administration, because oral does not have very good bioavailability. But at the end of the day, whatever you want to do, you know, there's some potential ability to kind of mop up the TMAO conversion by using allicin from garlic with your L-Carnitine orally. But that's kind of speculation at the end of the day. That was kind of, you know, stumbled across by some of you guys actually, which was cool. But in general, ideally injection would be ideal for carnitine. But anyways, you guys already know that. How many videos have I done about carnitine at this point? Antibiotics is like the first like pharma approach to acne management, which from what I've seen seems to be more like a band-aid, because it's kind of like dealing with a temporary like environmental issue with your skin in terms of the bacteria. So I don't really know for certain that it's a good idea necessarily. I just know it's one of the frontline treatments from a pharma perspective, but you know, I probably would not want to be exposing myself to antibiotics chronically, to be honest, to manage acne. Another thing, pantothenic acid, the reason I put this down on the list instead of with the basic vitamins, because this is just vitamin B5 after all, is that the dosage deployed to actually get rid of acne is like it's insane. Like the dosage is astronomical that people are using, but it seems to work very, very well. If you go to YouTube, there was a bit of a hype train last year where people were reversing severe acne with pantothenic acid, like very, very substantial before and afters. People that looked like they needed 100% Accutane, like no ifs, ands, or buts, they needed like hardcore treatment, ended up using a mega dose of vitamin B5 and totally reversing their acne. Now, what is the side effect profile of megadosing vitamin B5? You know, I can't say for certain, and I would highly recommend you go look at some of those logs of some of those individuals who ran a high dose for months on end. Obviously, look at some of the clinical literature too, but I mean, go look at why some of them, there's some videos about them discontinuing it. I highly recommend you go watch why they discontinued it and what the results were after, if they had any permanent side effects or anything like that before you just jump on this haphazardly. But pantothenic acid seems to be very potent over-the-counter means of managing acne too. Now getting into the pharma angle a bit further, tretinoin, something that encourages cell turnover and can dry out your acne and potentially be anti-aging simultaneously. So this is something I started recently just to try and, you know, stop or delay the aging process as much as possible. You know, I wish I started earlier, to be honest, but it can actually be a very anti-acne compound. It seems to be fairly effective at it. The only problem I see is if you have acne all over your body, like, are you going to be able to apply tretinoin all over it? You know, probably not. Like if you have it on your face or a, you know, small localized area, probably something to look at as one of your first line, you know, pharma methods, because this is something that seems to be far more tolerable than isotretinoin, which is Accutane, and it's topical rather than systemic, and is not really as, like it's not as side effect ridden, and it seems to have kind of like a 1-2 punch in that it can help your acne and it can also be anti-aging simultaneously. Interestingly enough, some people are actually using isotretinoin Accutane at a low dose for like anti-aging purposes, because they figure that, you know, tretinoin applied topically, if it's anti-aging, then using it isotretinoin systemically at like a normal, at a low dose could be like very anti-aging, and it does not seem to be more potent at increasing skin quality metrics in these studies that I've seen comparing. But Accutane, you know, should be reserved, in my opinion, for nuclear hardcore cases that you just cannot fix through everything else. So this is, you know, obviously talk to a dermatologist. Don't, you know, this is not suggesting to do anything or to use it ever. I'm just saying that Accutane for me worked great, but I still wish I tried some of this other stuff first, you know, because I do deal with like permanent dryness now. Like people will often ask me like, dude, your lips are so chapped. I'm like, you know how many fucking times I put on Vaseline, bro? Like it's been like this for a minute, dude. It's been like this for like, I don't know, 8-9 years or something. So it's I'm nearly certain it's the Accutane I took, and I have permanent dryness in my lips now and permanent dryness on my face as well. So this is something that be aware of, because it's probably going to happen. This shit like causes apoptosis, you know, like actual like programmed cell death. This is something that is going to be a permanent thing. This is not something you just take, you get rid of your acne, all's well and good. Like you have some systemic processes that are like permanently fucked with for the rest of your life when you take this drug. So just be careful about it. And I highly recommend you learn about the mechanism of action, the pharmacology, before you deploy it. Because when I used it, I had no idea what it actually does. I was like, oh, it just like lowers your oil amount to like the perfect amount and then you're good. Because I just have more oil than the next guy. So if I just take Accutane, then it just puts me where I should be. But it's like, I had no idea like I didn't even know the side effects, dude. Like I knew like, oh, you know, if you're pregnant, don't use it. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not a girl, so fuck, I'm good. But you should know more about how it works before you jump into something like this extreme. So anyways, some of the other stuff, highly recommend you try first. Also another pharma thing that is often overlooked that seems to be pretty good at acne management, Metformin, which is something that is also a, you know, potentially a novel approach to, you know, anti-aging longevity that a lot of like non-diabetics are actually using now as a proactive strategy to maintain, you know, better blood sugar regulation and to just improve their health in general. And yeah, obviously, you know, you can look at these studies that show it, you know, inhibits exercise performance to some extent, but I have found no decrease, you know, personally using it, and I've been using it for, you know, half a year to a year now. Most people I know that use it have no noticeable decrease in performance at all. Again, though, most of the people I talk to are enhanced, so it's kind of hard to say for certain that a natural won't have it, but Metformin seems to be very effective too at acne management, and I speculate that berberine also is very good at that. That's something maybe you want to look at our GDA product with Gorilla Mind. We have berberine complex with beta hydroxypropyl beta cyclodextrin for more bioavailability. That might be something to look at as well. But Metformin, obviously a tried and true approach to blood sugar management and whatnot. Berberine really is too, honestly. Like they're both worth looking at in my opinion before you go to something like Accutane. So anyways, even before you go to Pantothenic Acid probably too, just because Pantothenic is like, the dose you need to use is like scary. So make sure you understand that one too. So anyways, those are the general approaches to acne management that I could think of. You know, I'm probably missing some. If you have any, you know, useful ones, drop them down in the comments below. All of the comments are much appreciated by people who are trying to find information on this channel. So drop them down there, helps the algorithm too. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplatesmoredates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplatesmoredates. Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, it's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas, design myself from scratch, and anything else I'm associated with. It's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.